Ladies, gentlemen, I got a fun little factoid for you today, and that is, what does Toyota, General Motors, Ford, Honda, Ferrari, and Uber all have in common? Well, if you take their combined market capitalization, it is only equal to that of Tesla here, folks. And I even took this one step farther, in which I added up all of these companies' total revenue, not their earnings, just their total sales and revenue, to compare it to Tesla, in which those combined companies did $480 billion against Tesla's 2019 earnings, or the revenue of $24 billion. Tesla is making 20 times less, but is worth almost just as much as all of these companies, which is some staggering information. And you'll notice that I highlighted a time period through Tesla going back to May to today, in which the stock is up 161%. Now, why did I highlight this time period? Well, if we go to Elon Musk's Twitter, back in May, he quoted that Tesla's stock price is too high in his humble opinion. And you're probably thinking to yourself, what is this guy doing? A hit piece? He's probably sour. I know he sold some of his position at 1,600 and he just wants to, make fun of Tesla and this and that. But no, I am still holding on to about 6 shares in Tesla, which is probably more than most of the people watching this video. Not to simply brag, but I've been playing this one very cautiously up at these levels, as I'm currently up 415% on the 6 shares that I have left here, folks. And in this video, I want to share with you what I plan on doing with my last 6 shares, and I want to highlight some of the concerns that I have surrounding some of the tech with Tesla, with what I see going forward, and that is kind of predict what is going to happen with the Tesla stock price. Now, bringing all of this information together, I know some of you might not like getting the bad side of news, but I kind of like looking at reality on a biased level, because usually it stops me from making stupid decisions in the stock market. So if you appreciate the clarity of my transparency, would you mind just slapping that like button, folks? I lost my job and I'm trying to do this as a career, so let's just
I feel very confident predicting autonomous robotaxis for Tesla next year. Not in all jurisdictions, because we won't have regulatory approval everywhere, but I'm confident we will have at least regulatory approval somewhere literally next year.
I think we could see robotaxis in operation with the network fleet next year.
I have some faith in autopilot, and we'll see what it does here when we start to go forward. And then the autopilot takes control and sort of needs to right, almost hitting the car to the right of me, as you can see there on the screen. At this point, I start to get scared because I don't know what Tesla is going to do. I haven't been in this situation before, and so I didn't confirm the green light, and so it slows me down. And then I give the confirmation because right behind me, I'm all clear. I'm going to let Tesla do its work, and it does not do anything.
Called Waymo, and our fully self-driving cars are on the road. They use a range of technology we've built from the ground up, in full 360 degrees. And it doesn't just do that for the objects you and I can see. It can do that for things up to 3 football fields away. With all that knowledge, it can plan a safe path ahead. In this instance, giving that cyclist enough room to cycle past us, and also looking out for that pedestrian on the sidewalk. And when it comes to making decisions, this is a good example of how Waymo doesn't just take into account your safety. It also makes sure that both you and the people around you feel secure and at ease.
Oh, welcome back, my passive income investors alike. So yeah, I kind of pinpointed just some of the stuff that is going on currently with self-driving. Now, we do have a lot of catalysts coming up for this stock, including Battery Day. They're doing this stock split, a lot of cool stuff, and hopefully they're going to get listed on the S&P 500. But putting that aside, I really think this is primarily a tech company, let alone an auto company, which kind of justifies this crazy huge valuation the company has today. And the stock price itself going into today should be hovering around $1,900, because that's where it was pre-market, and it's been moving by like $100 in fluctuation here. But being a tech company, guys, I'm always kind of analyzing, like, what are they doing? Where is their future revenue going to come from? And Elon Musk just keeps hinting that, yeah, self-driving is coming. It's going to be here, but it's like we never quite get there, and it just keeps getting a little bit better and a little bit better, in which we could see their self-driving taxi network come online this year, which I think is just basically going to be Uber, but through Tesla, in which somebody's going to have to sit behind the wheel. And though that is a really cool idea, and I'm surprised more car companies aren't taking advantage of it, but putting that aside, I'm trying to figure out where Tesla is going to start fitting in its market cap, because I'm trying to be as optimistic about the company as possible. And Elon Musk likes to give some pretty optimistic timelines, but he never really fully follows through on them. And as I told you guys in the past, this company completely hinges on actually getting one of these ideas off the ground. Now, we also saw Waymo, which is owned by Google, in their LiDAR system, which Elon Musk has quoted heavily as being not really the future because it's too expensive.
LiDAR is a fool's errand. And anyone relying on LiDAR is doomed. Expensive sensors that are unnecessary. It's like having a whole bunch of expensive appendices.
Now, I haven't done the calculations, but presuming you don't need a driver in the car, I mean, that might justify some of the LiDAR price. And presuming technology gets better over time, we should see that tech getting cheaper and cheaper. And I'm not trying to compare, Google's Waymo to Tesla's vehicle. I mean, they're both kind of in their own space. And I am just as excited to see where both of these companies are going to end up in the future. But what do I think right now about Tesla? Well, obviously from the beginning of my video, Tesla is sitting at some pretty absurd valuations, and at this point I'm almost going to call the stock, well, pretty much gambling, because we're all just waiting for one of these moments where one of these huge ideas finally takes off. Could it be the million-mile battery? Maybe. We just don't know. Are other companies going to be buying Tesla batteries? Well, they're not actually right now. It doesn't mean they won't be in the future, but right now we're not hearing any real major deals that, Tesla's going to be supplying batteries to, say, GM or a Ford. And heck, their competition with Nikola and Hyliion aren't even considering, partnering with Tesla at all. In fact, Nikola has been trying to sue Tesla over basically patents and designs. And when I bring all of this together with the maddening amount of hype and analysts constantly raising the price of Tesla, I feel like they're just getting on board because everybody else is on board. Do you remember when Tesla hit 170 a share not even like a year ago, and everyone absolutely hated the company? Every analyst was like, yeah, we're not going to touch that with a 10-foot pole. And now that the stock is exploding day after day after day, every analyst is lined up to either give it a hold rating, which it currently has on my Scotia iTrade account here, but there's 10 bulls and 5 bears on this company. Now, I will always hold Tesla long-term here, folks, but now you have to understand the difference between speculating and investing. If you are buying Tesla for the next 10 or 20 years, I think you're probably making a pretty good investment. But in the macro aspect of things, Elon Musk always being extremely over-optimistic, it is very likely that we're going to end up getting some bad news sometime, maybe in the next year, 5 years. I don't know what Tesla's stock is exactly going to do, whether it's going to keep going up, whether it's going to come down. The only thing that I can recognize is that we are looking at a parabolic movement in a stock that has driven a lot of hype from everybody. And you will remember this with the MJ sector, with Bitcoin, when everybody and their grandmother was, thinking about buying into them. Now, over the span of the last year or two, yeah, Bitcoin not doing actually that bad. Bitcoin is having a bit of a rebound. Now, if you bought it at those absurd $20,000 highs, you might still be waiting a little bit longer, but damn, we are getting pretty close to getting back there with Bitcoin. Whereas the MJ sector, we all know how that worked out. And I'm not trying to compare Tesla to either of those. It is revolutionizing the entire auto industry, which should lead to some higher valuations. But the problem is how do you justify the price when there is no earnings or revenue backing it up? And I mean, it comes back to that reality that Tesla is likely pricing in the next 5 years of what the company is going to achieve. And I say this about a lot of companies like Apple, like Microsoft. When they start running faster than their bottom line earnings, sooner or later those earnings are going to catch up to the stock price. And like I said, I don't know when that catalyst comes. I don't know how high Tesla can go until that happens, and I don't know how low it can drop. And if you're buying into it not understanding this, and especially if you don't have a well-diversified portfolio of, let's say, some blue chip stocks to protect yourself from the mad volatility that we are likely to see moving forward with this company, you just need to be careful. That's all I'm saying here, guys, especially when you're watching people like Meet Kevin, who's throwing hundreds of thousands of dollars at Tesla.
Hey everyone, me Kevin here. I own 2,387 shares of Tesla.
But at least people like Financial Education, Jeremy, another large Tesla bull, have actually stood up and said, look, these things are getting pretty expensive, considering I didn't think Tesla was going to be at $2,000 a share at least for another 2 or 3 years, considering Kathy Wood's low end bull thesis I think was between 2 and 4,000. On a high end thesis it was between 10 and 14,000. But again, she is a long-term thinker in the next 10 to 15 years or so, right? So why is the stock rallying and being priced as though all of these things currently exist? It is just simply something investors should be considering when they're purchasing the stock. Now, what do I actually plan on doing with my shares here? Well, if it comes to no surprise, I do plan on selling more. I actually plan on maybe selling 1 share in the next week if the stock starts pushing closer to roughly around $2,000, and that is simply to keep my weighted average at around 10,000 invested in Tesla. Basically, every time my share price becomes worth around $12,000, I'm going to pull about 2,000 off the table, in which I'm going to reinvest it into some other really awesome companies. And I've already done that with things like Johnson and Pepsi, but where my eyeballs are really focused is actually on Google. Now, when we're talking about the S&P top 10 companies here, folks, Apple and Microsoft are well priced to perfection, but I really like the valuation on things like Johnson & Johnson, on things like Facebook, and right now, Google's fairly attractive to me, though I usually don't buy companies I work for because it puts me at a lot of excessive risk. For example, I've been a full-time magician for the last decade, and if I took on the risk of, say, buying into more entertainment companies like Wynn Resorts or anything like Carnival Cruise, which are companies a lot of performers work for, I would have been really screwed because I've lost almost 100% of my revenue from my job, and then on top of that, those stock prices would have just slaughtered me. So because I make money off Google, I usually have a hard time buying into it because obviously if the stock goes down and let's say Google cuts its YouTube revenue, well, then I'm really in trouble. But in this current circumstance, when I look at the valuation of Google, say compared to something like an Apple or a Microsoft, it is actually trading, in my opinion, at a much better multiple. And it also gives me more exposure to the growing social media platform that is YouTube, along with their Waymo and their LiDAR self-driving system, which already seems to work a little bit better than Elon Musk's self-driving system, considering they already have cars that are driving around working pretty independently. So just going into Google's balance sheet, which is so much more wonderful than looking at Tesla stock right now, we can see their total assets are about $275 billion against the total liabilities of $74 billion, with only a current liability of $45 billion. This company is just phenomenal just on its assets versus liabilities. And when we look at the 2019 revenue of $34 billion in earnings and $161 billion in revenue, it just seems so much more attractive, especially if it not only gives you access to Waymo and self-driving, which again, we don't know what the future of that is, and maybe I'll make a video. If you guys want to see a Waymo video, let me know in the comments section below, and maybe it's something I will further research. But not only that, you get exposure to SpaceX, because Google is one of the few companies that actually help fund SpaceX, which I think has an 8 or 10% stake in that company alone. So you are getting some pretty incredible diversification with Google. You're getting access to SpaceX along with some self-driving systems that nobody ever really talks about, which I think would be a really good company to buy into with some of my Tesla profits, which I would also love to know what you guys think about that decision in the comment section below. And I'll update you here, of course, when I actually decide to pull the trigger. But the markets are about to open. It's pretty early morning. It's 9:20. You'll probably see this video posted a little bit later today. So it'll be fun to see if Tesla can hold over $1,900 a share today. But in light of all of that, stay cool, stay awesome, and I look forward to chatting to you guys tomorrow.